Today I'm reviewing Looking for Alaska by John Green. And I think I'm going to give it 4.5 stars. So Looking for Alaska I feel like it's a little slightly difficult to explain. It's about a boy named Miles who decides that he wants to go to boarding school for his grade 11 year, or junior year I guess, whatever you want to call it. And he is not very good at making friends. He hasn't really had friends all of his life. He's kind of like just a quiet person who just sits at home and reads and likes to memorize people's last words, which is kind of cool. And he makes friends when he gets to his new school, and he becomes completely infatuated by this girl named Alaska. The story is broken up by 2 parts. The first part is all of the things that happen before something happens, and then the second part is all of the things that happen after the thing that happens, but I can't tell you what the thing is that happens. And there aren't any like actual chapters, like the story's broken up, but it's not like chapter 1 or chapter 2. In the before section it's like 127 days before. And then there's like, it has the story. And then the next chapter would be 126 days before. And then in the after section there's like the day after. And 114 days after. So that's all I can say. That's really all I can say. It's about a bit of a mystery until you start reading it, and then you kind of get an idea of what you think might happen, but then you're not entirely sure. Like, it could be this, but then it could be this. And then, yeah. So this book is a lot of fun. They go on some adventures, and they're pretty rambunctious, and they break the rules a lot, and I thought it was just a fun read to read about them breaking the rules and being ridiculous, and just him making friends, and the different things and customs and traditions that they have at their school. So that was fun to read about. So I felt like it also was pretty deep. It had a lot of like deep life thoughts in it, and I really liked that. I liked all of the deep thoughts that they had, and it was just very, yeah, deep I'm just gonna say it again. It was deep. I've heard a lot of people compare this book to Paper Towns, which for one makes sense because it's written by the same author, but I've heard people say that Paper Towns is a replica of this book with just different character names. I'm gonna disagree, but I'm going to agree with a few parts that the main characters in this, Miles and Alaska, are very, very, very similar to the main characters in Paper Towns, which are Q and Margot. I felt like they were pretty much the same characters, especially Alaska. I felt like Alaska was Margot. They were the same girl. And I felt like the main character, Miles/Q, were interested in the main character for the same reasons. Which, for one, that's fine. I don't see a problem with his main characters being similar and being admired for the same reasons. There isn't really anything wrong with that. And 2, I find a lot of authors write themselves into their characters, whether they realize they're doing it or not, and I feel like a lot of characters sometimes aren't necessarily like the authors, but they might like the same things, or have the same thoughts about things, or say something the same way, or have a quirk about them that's kind of like the author. They just put in without really realizing it, or the characters are who the authors want themselves to be or wish that they were when they were younger. So if that's the case with John Green, that makes total sense that the characters would be the same. And I'm gonna say that the storyline and the idea and theme between Looking for Alaska and Paper Towns were similar as well, but they were not the same. And I actually liked Looking for Alaska better than Paper Towns. I thought it was more meaningful. I felt like there was a lot more meaning to this book, and to the characters, and to the way that they look at life. And I felt like Paper Towns was just like a fun search for someone. And while this is technically a search for someone, it's more of a search for yourself. I feel like they were discovering things about themselves a lot more than they were in Paper Towns. I don't know why I'm doing such a big comparison here. I've just heard a lot of people talk about how they're the same book, and it bugs them that they're the same book, and they're not the same book. There's big similarities, but they're not the same, and I really liked this one a lot better than Paper Towns, actually. I just felt like the whole book was pretty much a big life lesson, and it went deeply into like thoughts of teenagers and adults, and like it was deep, and it was good, and it was fun, and it was funny, and it was a really good book.